The cycle of hype and criticism of Zurdo resumes after victory over Dorticós. Media and fans often evaluate boxers based solely on whether they win or lose, but the case of Mexico's Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, currently the unified WBA-WBO cruiserweight champion, is especially curious. Despite having only one official loss, public opinion has swung wildly throughout his career, from absurd overhype to harsh criticism. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. Early on, Ramirez was seen as a highly promising prospect at super middleweight, even though his opposition was weak and he showed clear limitations. His controversial win over Vlasov led many to quickly doubt him, yet he was showered with praise when he claimed a title against Abraham, a boxer on the verge of retirement whose style suited him perfectly. All in all, his rather unimpressive reign was soon criticized by many, who dismissed his boxing entirely, to the extent that some experts spoke about him in a tone of outright mockery. At that stage, it seemed unlikely that public perception would shift again, especially as he moved up to light heavyweight, where truly tough champions awaited. But surprisingly, Ramirez was hyped again after beating worn veterans like Sullivan Barrera and Yunieski Gonzalez. Heading into his bout with Bivol, many absurdly claimed Ramirez would crush the Russian, only for the fight to prove them completely wrong. Criticism returned when he jumped to cruiserweight, and it looked like it might become definitive. But after winning a belt from Golimirian, who had been inactive for over a year and whose win over Igorov had been questionable, and then unifying against Billam Smith, many began calling Ramirez the number one in the division and the only real challenge for Jai Opetaya's dominance. So it's no surprise that after Saturday's uninspiring unanimous decision win, 115-112, 115-112, 117-110, Bastion Boxing also scored at 117-110, over Cuban Uniel Dorticós. Criticism once again began to resurface. Ramirez certainly gave fans reason to be disappointed. Facing an opponent who had fought only once in the past 2.5 years, hadn't faced high-level competition since his 2020 loss to Briedis, and whose physical condition in boxing had clearly declined, Ramirez lost early rounds, as he got trapped against the ropes and struggled to handle pressure that wasn't even particularly intense or skilled. Later, with Dorticós unable to effectively throw the straight right hand that had been key throughout his career, as well as battling fatigue, reduced explosiveness, limited tools, and poor defense, Ramirez was able to land slow, soft punches and take clear control of the fight. He also benefited from a point deduction to Dorticós for repeated low blows. The decisive factor, however, was the champion's control throughout the second half of the fight, during which he consistently outworked his opponent each round, selected his combinations with a measure of cleverness, and made effective use of his southpaw stance. Now, Ramirez and Opetaya are expected to begin talks for a 3-belt unification bout, one that will crown a definitive number one in the division, reveal the true extent of Opetaya's talent, and mark another chapter in Ramirez's roller coaster career. In any case, whatever the result, it likely won't be the final shift in Zurdo's winding journey. Thanks for watching. More info on our website.